Hey everybody, What's It Fox Gaming here. So today I wanted to look at the exotic Bighorn, the assault rifle that you can obtain from any of the 3 legendary strongholds. This has a 10% drop rate from the final boss. So there's the thing with this assault rifle, I was a bit conflicted with this when I got it because I recognised that, and it still is one of the hardest hitting weapons in the game. The potential DPS of this weapon can easily outstrip a well-rolled MG5, a classic M1A, or any other assault rifle in the game. You know, its base damage in conjunction with its perk means that on paper this thing hits hard. So why aren't more people using it? You know, it's an assault rifle which have received a nice buff. A lot of people like using assault rifles, and it even has the ability to scope in and use it as a rifle mode. So technically it's filling in the role of 2 different weapons. So, you know, what I wanted to do was look at why people aren't using it, and there are some, I will be honest, there are some glaring weaknesses with this gun that massive need to address. There's one in particular that I actually think they didn't even consider when they built this gun, and I think with just this one change it could turn this weapon overnight into one of the best weapons in the game. I've put together a build that has been inspired by a couple of people. One of my lieutenants in my clan, Mado CFM, he uses an Overwatch opportunistic full DPS build for the first boss of Iron Horse because it gives us all a lot of extra damage against that boss and ensures that we melt him in the usual 10-second window. And also by somebody else that plays on Xbox, Clutch Slip, who commented on my my Ravenous review video, stating that I should be using Gunner because it just offers it offers 10% weapon handling when you're in cover or when you're stationary for a second, which turns a lot of assault rifles into a laser. And that was a really good point. I actually updated that build, so thanks for that, Clutch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this into the firing line. I'm going to quickly show you where the weapon shines and where it absolutely falls short, and then we're going to load into just any heroic mission, and I'll sort of try and give you some real world, you know, usage of the weapon. So the Bighorn. Okay, let's have a look at the talent first of all. When scoped, switches to semi-automatic fire mode, dealing 450% weapon damage with each shot. So that's essentially the rifle mode. Headshots grant 2% headshot damage, stacks up to 50 times, resets to 0 at full stacks. So that sounds pretty good, right? You've got your full automatic mode. And honestly, this thing slaps. It really does hit hard. And then you've got your scope mode, which you just zoom in as normal. And that's when you can start sort of going for your headshots. So yeah, you know, it's nice that it can fill in 2 different weapon roles. So what I want to do now is have a look at the weaknesses of this gun. If you compare it to a similar RPM weapon, such as I think the Carbine 7 is the closest. It definitely hits quite a fair bit harder, particularly when you're going for those headshots and getting those stacks. My first issue with this weapon is the scope. Now this is just the standard. I think it's the ACOG scope. I forget which one it is. The one that gives you increased optimal range. On this weapon, this is the only scope that you can have apart from, of course, the standard sights. So, you know, you have to rely on this if you want to land your headshots from range. And I don't know if this is just me. I don't see anybody ever really using the scope. I cannot stand this scope. I think it's absolutely awful. The other issue with the weapon is its low mag count, 31 in the mag. And, of course, being an exotic, you can't mod this to 50 like you can with other ARs. Now, that can be circumvented by or at least helped it by, you know, the suggestion that that Clutch Slip made, which is to use Gunner, because of course with that 10% handling that equates directly to 10% reload speed, and I actually use the booster hive here for an additional 20%. So admittedly with that on, it reloads pretty quick. There isn't a delay with the reload, and because you're not using that 20 mag the mod that you use with other ARs that actually reduces your reload speed, it does reload pretty quick. So that for me is its kind of the weakness that I can get away with the most. A lot of people think this is its biggest weakness. I'd have to sort of disagree with that. I actually think that that's not too bad, and you know, all it tells me is that Massive want you to be using it in scope mode, because when you put it in this rifle mode, well, all of a sudden instead of having a low mag, it's got double the mag, in fact more than double the mag of a M1A. So I don't have an issue with the mag count, not directly. Yes, it could be higher, but that's not the end of the world, and that won't fix the big issue with this gun. The single biggest issue is its recoil pattern, how this is coded. So what I'm going to do first of all is show you, let's go for a FAMAS. So FAMAS here, I'm not even going to use my right analog stick, this is just going to be the natural recoil pattern. Every bullet is about the same distance apart from each other. It's a relatively consistent, so of course if you are controlling this, they're all going to hit in pretty much the same area. Now let's look at the Bighorn. Every bullet is roughly the same gap apart from the first one. You see that? Think that's a coincidence? Let's try again. Let's try a third time. For some reason with this AR, the first bullet kicks up and then it goes into its pattern. Same here, same here. There's always that jump. Now, this is the part that I think Massive didn't consider, as I said earlier. When you are scoped, it classes every bullet as the first bullet. So bear in mind this weapon is supposed to be a precision weapon. You know, it's literally called Big Game Hunter, so it's meant to be like a rifle in this mode. You're supposed to land consistent headshots, right? Well, how is that possible when every bullet jumps like this? So, again, I will demonstrate this against something like an M1A. Let's just change this to a harder difficulty. Let's go to an invulnerability one. So what I'm going to do here is a small test to show you how many bullets I can land on the head without moving my right analog stick, without adjusting. Let's do it from a bit of range, shall we? So let's look at the Bighorn first. We're going to scope in. I'm going to put it right in the centre. No directional input here. I'm just going to fire, and we'll see how many damage numbers we get until I'm no longer on the head. Two bullets. Let's go to the M1A. Zoom in with this C79. Same place, right in the centre. About there. I mean, it's infinite. It goes on and on and on. So this is a weapon we're supposed to be landing consistent headshots with, and you're going to have to manage this recoil, because for some reason they gave it this strange recoil pattern where it kicks up after the first shot, comes back down, and then fires consistently. But as I stated, they didn't consider that when you're in scope mode, every bullet acts as the first bullet, and every bullet kicks up this massive, massive jump here. So for me, if they fixed that one issue, if they just made it the same as a FAMAS or any other assault rifle in the game, and got rid of this strange recoil pattern, that one fix alone, I think, would make this weapon viable. So they're sort of the main issues that I have with the weapon. It's, you know, I can deal with the scope, I can deal with the low mag count, absolutely I can. It hits incredibly hard, and under the right circumstances, this thing destroys. It is, technically speaking, one of the best ARs in the game. But absolutely, 100% Massive, you need to fix this recoil pattern. I believe this is based on an AUG, but why you chose this with a gun that you need to zoom in with, I have no idea, because it completely ruins it. And in my personal opinion, this is the #1 reason why people aren't using it. Because landing those consistent headshots, even whilst trying to control it, it's just hard. And this is only 10 meters away. You know, imagine I was going for this guy down here, sort of trying to land consistent headshots when I could just stick on an M1A and sort of just spam, and you know, the scope hardly kicks at all. It's very strange to me. Okay, let's have a look at the build I put together, because I feel that this build does kind of reduce some of the weaknesses of the weapon. You know, and I apologise if the first part of that video sounded a little bit negative. You know, I don't like to be one of those content creators that's like, oh, Massive, why are you doing this, and this is terrible, and this is rubbish. You know, that's not kind of the point of my content here. But I really do hope they make that one change with the recoil pattern of the Bighorn, because they have created a very unique weapon. And like I said before, in the right circumstances, this thing is phenomenal. It hits so hard. It's definitely best in slot for its RPM in terms of base damage before you even put a build together. So, yeah, it is great in the right circumstances. So, as I said before, one of my friends uses a Overwatch opportunistic build for the first raid boss, because that gives us, the whole team, a lot of extra damage. But I noticed that he himself is still hitting very large damage numbers, because it's still a 6 red build. All he's done is just changed his talents for his chest and backpack. So I kind of wanted to do the same thing there. I decided to dust off the Ferocious Calm, because this is a named Fenris chest piece, which gives us 10% assault rifle damage. And this piece has perfect Overwatch. After staying in cover for 8 seconds, that's down from the usual 12 by the way, increases you and your allies' total weapon and skill damage by 12%, as long as you remain in cover or in a cover-to-cover move. So you can even sit in cover, and where you sort of see the little, at least on Xbox, the A button or the X button for PlayStation, and you move to another piece of cover. Even in that animation, it retains the Overwatch buff, which if you look at my buff bar there is the blue in cover symbol. It's only when you come out of that you lose it, and then when you go back in it starts to refill again. So this has given me 12% damage. You know, it's not too far behind Obliterate, which gives us 15% weapon damage. Glass Cannon is 25%, but of course we take a lot of extra incoming damage there. But most importantly, this is giving it to my entire team. So, you know, 12% is a good damage buff for a build. And based on the suggestion that Clutch Slip made with my Ravenous video, I need to be spending a lot of time in cover with weapons that have poor handling, such as the Ravenous and, more importantly, the Bighorn. So I thought, well, why not have a weapon damage talent that's only a tiny bit lower than the other weapon damage talents, apart from Glass Cannon, obviously, but applies that to my entire team. You do find you get a nice sort of mix of skill and weapon builders in heroic content at the moment as well, and because this buffs both skill and weapon damage, I think this is a really good choice for this weapon. We're still going to stick with Vigilance because I'm going to be sitting in the back lines in cover and hopefully not taking a great deal of fire, so Vigilance should in theory give me a lot of extra weapon damage. We have opted for the 3-piece Providence as well, so you know, I've got the mask and the gloves as Providence. That does give us the 15% headshot damage, which does pair up very nicely with you know, the Bighorn. And then what we've done is we've gone for the Fox's Prayer as well, just to give us the 8% damage to targets out of cover. To fill in the final 10% critical hit chance that I needed, I have gone for a Seska piece here. Every piece is rolled into critical hit chance and damage, as you can see. This is all very well geared, admittedly, so don't worry too much if you can't hit quite this high. But those are my stats: 58.5 critical hit chance and 175.8 critical hit damage. Now I could in theory just use Coyotes here as I'm going to be sat in the back line, but you know, I don't want to be... Well, I do like Coyotes because it does benefit the whole team, but and it probably would make more sense with this build actually, because it is an Overwatch build which is designed to support the team. So in theory I should have the Providence down here and a Coyotes here. So yeah, I probably will swap that out, to be fair, but I've just kind of put this build together as a last minute thought. I just wanted to get that Ferocious Calm in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to load into a mission, and I'll sort of try and give you an idea of how the gun plays, you know, and just sort of the raw damage that you can really achieve with it. Let's go for Heroic.
You have received an invite.
Now, whilst this gun fires quite a fair bit slower than the M1A, the damage difference, especially when you get those stacks, is probably about double. I think the M1A is about a 180 RPM. The Bighorn feels like it's barely more than a bullet a second, so it must be, I don't know, maybe like 90 to 100. It's pretty slow, but yeah, it hits hard. I mean, with my perfectly rolled boomerang, you know, I've got a triple god roll. Oh, where am I going? I've got a triple god roll version with boomerang. Even on crits, it's hitting about, with this particular build, it was hitting about sort of 2.5 million. This thing hits more like 4.5 million, so substantially more. So yeah, you know, it definitely is a bit of a powerhouse. But it's just that kick. I mean, look at that, even in cover here. Let's get the booster hype down. Let's try and land some headshots. So it's not too bad with the booster hype, actually. I'm not really a fan of the scope, mind. I prefer if I could just sort of use this mode without scope. And bearing in mind I'm on console here, so you know, this video might be completely moot for a PC user that would be like, Fox, what the hell are you talking about, dude? Like, this is super easy to use on M&K. I actually don't know that. You know, I haven't played the Division on PC as of yet. I'm a controller user, and as I've stated many times before, my aim is pretty average at best. So, you know, this review is based on my own personal experiences with the gun. When I first got it, I used to really advocate it. I was like, guys, you need to be using this gun because it's so powerful. And everybody was like, well, you know, it's just, the mag is too small, the scope mode is terrible. And time again I was trying to say, no, it's definitely worth it, but I couldn't deny that in the end I was just being a bit of a fanboy. And you know, actually, if I just used an M1A, which I ended up doing, it was just better. So we're hitting some pretty big damage numbers here. I mean, 2.6 to the head there, and that's with hardly any damage built up, 10 stacks. So will I be using the Bighorn in future? The simple answer is yes, I will. I feel that if you understand the weaknesses of the weapon, and hopefully this video has helped you out with that if you didn't already know, which I'm guessing most of you did. If you understand the weaknesses and you play around them, which is kind of the theme of a lot of my builds, yes, it's 100% usable. Is it best in slot? I'm sorry to say at the moment, no, it is not. You are simply better off just using an M1A, a Ravenous, an MG5, a FAMAS, or probably any other AR if I'm being completely honest. But in certain circumstances where you do sort of rough your handling, and you know, you sit in cover and play back and play safe, so you can just sit out and really land those shots, yes, it really slaps. Like, really does.
Serious trouble.
But see, this is the thing here, like against the heavy, where ARs are typically strong, you don't even want to be going for the head. You're better off just going for the centre of mass, because one, it's easier to hit, and two, you can also go for their backpack there as well. And just in the normal AR mode, like again, you saw that kick there, look at that. Just in the normal AR mode, it hits hard. It really does, like absolutely chew through these ads. And it's strange because it's almost better in the standard sort of fully automatic mode. It's actually almost better. It really does pump out some big damage. I mean, you can see those numbers there. But then you're not obviously taking advantage of the unique talent that it has, which is the headshot damage being buffed. So yeah, it's definitely in a strange place. I really think if they just fix that recoil pattern and potentially change the scope, it will just be better. And maybe give it, I don't know, maybe buff the max size. I think that's the biggest complaint of the community at the moment. But it definitely does feel good with gunner. I think that was the right choice. And since the handling buff, the weapon is better than it was before. They did change with TU10, I think, or possibly TU9. They did change the talent as well, or they added, in addition to the big game hunter, they added in the headshot damage buff. And if you can play around that by buffing your handling with the booster hive and gunner, you know, you're up against a boss that has an exposed head, not a heavy. Yeah, it's really good. So I'm actually potentially thinking of using this against the first boss using, you know, my friend Mad's build with Overwatch. So, but basically this build and just sort of sitting back and just pummeling that head, because I think that's where it's really going to shine. I mean, look at these numbers, 4 million there, 3.7 million as a crit. If I can actually land my headshots. See over here. Let's try and stay in cover to give a guys Overwatch. 4.4 million. We switched to the M1A. 2.6 million. But then this thing just fired. Look at that, just constant headshots. Bang, 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 bang. Constant headshots, and it fires much faster. So it's a tough one. You know, let me know in the comments, guys. Let me know your thoughts. I know the general consensus around Bighorn is that it's not in a very good place, and I think that's reflected by the fact that I literally see nobody using it at all. I mean, if we go into these guys now, let's see if anybody has it on. No, he's got an M1A, M1A, Vamas. There you go, exactly the weapons I was talking about earlier, so that doesn't surprise me at all. Let me know your thoughts, guys. We'll call the video and end here. I'm not going to go through the whole mission. I feel like I wanted to talk about this weapon and demonstrate it, and I feel like I've done that now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. You know, if I've been a bit too negative about the weapon in this video, please do be honest with me. I've got no issue with the amount of dislikes versus likes that I get on the video, because that's a good indication of if it's the content that you guys want. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you think I've kind of bang on the mark here, if you think I've missed it and you're like, Fox, just use this particular build, use sharpshooter, use this, use that, and you'll have a much better time with it. No, Fox, you're using it wrong. You know, be honest with me, tell me what you think. I'll happily do an updated build if there is a better one out there, and we'll see if we, you know, if I can use the weapon, if the weapon becomes a lot more usable for me. So thank you very much for sticking through this run. I hope that I gave you a good overview of why the weapon is incredibly strong and where its weaknesses are as well. And I will see you all in the next video. Peace.